It's time to debunk some of the common misconceptions that people have about the teaching profession. Hi, I'm a music teacher and this is my life. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, or welcome for those of you who might be new here. In today's video, I'm going to be debunking 5 of the most common myths, misconceptions, or misunderstandings about the teaching profession. And the word miss is in this word for a good reason, because they are all misses, they're all wrong. So I hope that if you're a teacher, you can sort of relate with me on some of these. And everyone, teacher or not, let me know in the comments if there are any misconceptions that you've heard about teachers that I didn't include. And also if you'd like a part 2 to this kind of video. Before we jump in, remember to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell to stay up to date on all of the upcoming content. Let's start with myth number 1. Those who can't do, teach. Now, this one bothers me a lot because it's not the case, and I'm going to give you an example. So I teach in a high school setting in Canada, and so there are a certain number of French courses that people need in order to graduate. I've never met a French teacher who couldn't read, write, and speak fluently in French. It just doesn't happen. I'm a music teacher. I did a music degree. I know how to read music. I know how to interpret it. I know how to play an instrument. I learned how to play other instruments to a beginner level. I know how to put many instruments together. I'm not equally proficient at all of those instruments, but I'm able to perform well. I am able to explain things well. I know how to put an instrument together. Those who can do also teach. The second myth is that teachers get paid to have their summers off. Now, in many ways, this is not true, and I'm going to try and explain this in a little bit of a different way because in my school board, teachers can be in a few different jobs. For example, number 1 is as a supply or substitute teacher. So this is someone who fills in for someone for a day here and there, or even part of a day if they're sick, if they have an appointment, things like that. If you are a supply teacher in my school board, you are only paid for the time that you spend in the classroom. So any day of the calendar year where you are not supply teaching, you do not get paid for, which means you do not get paid for the summer, and you do not get paid for things like Christmas break or holiday break, March break, the Easter long weekend, any of that. So no, those kinds of teachers don't get paid for their days off. Long-term occasional teachers is the next category. So long-term occasional teachers in my school board are teachers who fill in for a teacher for an extended amount of time. So in a high school context, you might be covering a semester or maybe a year for a teacher who's on, let's say, a medical leave recovering from surgery or a paternal leave, whether it's a maternal, paternal, or just parental leave. When you're an LTO, you are getting paid a little bit more than supply teachers because you have to prepare your own lessons, your own assignments and evaluations, things like that. However, you are being paid your full amount for the time that you're in the classroom, which means LTOs are also not paid during summer breaks. They are also not paid during March break, Christmas break, or holiday break, things like that. The last category are teachers like me, who are contract teachers. Now, where I live, a contract teacher is actually a teacher who has permanent work, meaning they are guaranteed a certain amount of work at that school every year until they decide to either change schools or retire or leave the profession, something like that. How it works in those months is I actually do not get paid my full salary for 10 months of the year. How it works is from September to June, when school is in session where I live, I get paid a certain amount of my salary, but it's not the full amount. I take essentially what is a pay cut for 10 months of the year so that they can stretch out that money through the summer months so that in turn, I end up getting paid. So is money still coming in to help cover my expenses? Yes, but technically that means that from September to June, I am not paid the full value of the time I'm putting in. Also, teachers don't always have summers off. Right? Some of them go to different workshops, attend professional development. Some of them, in order to get paid, work summer school jobs, which like I've done summer school every summer since I started with my school board up until now. I've also applied for it this year. So needless to say, a lot of teachers don't actually get paid to have time off. And also, most of them spend at least some of their summertime working on things to get ready for September. Or if they don't have a job for September, then they are taking online courses, or maybe they're taking in-person courses depending on where they live to try and improve their resume, and hopefully that'll help them find a job in the future. So no, teachers do not get paid to have time off. That's not how it works. Number 3 is that teaching is an easy or cushy job. That's not true for so many different reasons. Now, some people might think that when they walk by a classroom, that it doesn't look like the teacher is doing a whole lot, right? Now, sometimes it'll depend on the subject or the grade level. There will be some days where you walk by a classroom and you will see students moving around the classroom and working on an activity. Or you might look at a classroom like some of my classrooms where the students are looking at computers. And some people might say that teacher's not doing anything. When, had they walked by earlier, they would have seen me explaining words and definitions and explaining what they were working on the computer. I work with grades 9 through 12, so I work with students who are older, supposed to be more mature, and supposed to be more independent as well. But it's not easy because what we do in the classroom is only a small part of what we do, right? There's also all of the planning we do ahead of time, the marking that goes into it. We do parent-teacher interviews, we contact home, we will sometimes contact other teachers if we notice some behavior changes or attendance concerns to see if it's happening in other classes and if there are ways that we can help them. We refer to their IEPs to see if they need any accommodations with either our classes or standardized tests. So needless to say, teaching's not an easy job. Trust me. And on top of that, we also deal with a lot of criticism from people who may be in the public, but that's going to lead me into my next myth or misconception. So misconception number 4 is that if teachers go on strike, it's because they're lazy or they want more money. Now, the reason I bring this up is because just before COVID, where I lived, there was a province-wide teacher strike. And the reason for the strike was because the provincial government was trying to reduce the amount of money that taxpayers paid. And the way they wanted to do that was by cutting funding from public schools, particularly resources for special education. And as I'm sure many of you can agree, that is unacceptable because a lot of students who are in special education programs need extra resources and additional support, whether that is EAs in the classroom to help them, assistive technology devices, or things like manipulatives that they can use to work with their hands if they struggle with writing or other forms of assessments. There are just so many resources that go into schools. And that's one of the places where funding just shouldn't be cut from students in special education programs because they need the extra help and the support. It should be there for them and their families. And so there were people driving by us who would say, oh, good for you, or they'd honk at us, they'd wave, great job. And some people would yell swear words out of the car, you guys are lazy, or you need to get back to work. At least in my teaching context, I do not get paid my normal salary or paycheck on days where we go on strike. Our union gives us what's called strike pay, where because we're not in the classroom, our employer, which is the school board, isn't paying us. Our union pays us what's called strike pay. And the only way they can pay that is because we pay union dues on every single pay stub. So it makes sense that they have some money put away for us to get on days where we are on strike. However, that strike pay, when I divide it across the number of hours that we had to spend outside, worked out to less than minimum wage for that one day. So strike pay is not the same as our regular everyday teaching pay. And on top of that, when people say that teachers are lazy and they have to go back to work, keep in mind that at the time of that strike, it was a cold winter. It was negative 30 degrees Celsius outside, and we were walking outside anywhere from like 4 to 6, sometimes 8 hours, depending on the day. So believe me, on a day where it's that cold outside, Trust me, I would much rather be in a warm classroom with my students, teaching them and engaging with them, instead of walking around the same little block of space on the sidewalk over and over and over again in the cold for several hours. And the fifth and final misconception is that teachers know everything. And that's just not true. The reality is that no one knows everything, because most of us went to school or have work experience in one area or maybe a few areas. So I don't pretend to know everything. If my students have a question that I can't answer, I'm honest with them and I say, you know what, I'm not sure, but I'm going to try and find the answer. Or, you know what, no one's asked me that before. Let's try to find the answer together. Because I think that it's helpful for students to understand that we're teachers. We're people too. We do know many things. We don't know everything. And it's okay for people not to know everything, because that's why you work in a school where maybe if I don't know something, someone who's more experienced or someone who's worked in that building for longer or someone who's taught the student before might be able to help support them and also to help me learn something, right? As teachers, we're lifelong learners. And, the classic saying, you learn something new every day, is true. Even as a teacher, I'm learning something new every day. So those are 5 teaching myths or misconceptions debunked. Thank you so much for watching. Again, let me know in the comment section what other misconceptions you've heard about teaching. And if you're interested in a part 2 to this type of video, remember to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell to stay up to date on all the upcoming content. And I will see you all next week.